Welcome, London and Ward 9. I'm back again, take a look at some opportunities, what I can do with your help as only one vote at City Council to see if we can have some job creation in the city. So let's talk about job creation and how we're going to grow it and how we're going to allow the people that make jobs, which are basically 90% of the jobs come from small business. So we want, as a city, we want to allow these people to spend their money, to create money and spend their money and create jobs in London. And that's one of the big opportunities we've got now at Council. And we start talking around the City Council horseshoe, this is some of the things I'm looking for of how we can create some jobs and keep the taxes the same as they were before. For example, for anyone wanting to start a company, they have to have an idea, and they have to have some information that'll maybe help them get the idea. For example, there's a lot of research from universities out there, and a lot of people can't even get at the research, and in some cases, if they haven't got a library card to get to the university, they're not even going to have the opportunity to find out what are some of the research that's going on, what are some of the successful, and how do they get on the internet and try to find these research opportunities that can start a company and work a deal with whoever's got the patent out there. So that's the first thing, is to find out where are the opportunities, what's happening, and to what extent can you get involved or even duplicate what's going on somewhere else around the world. There's a whole bunch of new research being done. There's new inventions being done in Ottawa, and it's even good to get a hold of some of the connections and all the information that's possible through the internet when you start doing both U.S. and Canadian patent rights, and take a look at that and see, oh, there's a good idea, or maybe it can be done a little bit differently, and you can get into the opportunity of competing with other people, and so you can start a job and find out, gee, you might be on the tip of the iceberg, whether it be software or hardware, BlackBerry, information technology, other than just making machinery and doing some things which happened years in the past. So the second point would be try to get information, try to get the library through information on the internet to find out what opportunities are out there. Thirdly, you may have some great ideas. You might be an entrepreneur or learning how to be an entrepreneur, or you start to meet, is what you want to do, is start to meet and group together with other entrepreneurs to say, gee, I got an idea and you got an idea, and both together we can have a great idea. So I think that's where the city can start to help to connect, and through, certainly we are right now with Tech Alliance and the LEDC initiatives, and certainly up at the university, it's important to meet other people that in the same similar type of opportunity or the mindset to see if you can join together and try to create some jobs. So all other things are, if you've got a great idea, where's the money coming from? Usually it's, well, have you got any money from your parents, or maybe you've got some relatives that can put some money into it. But the point is, you've got to come up with a plan and a business plan and take a look at even the government to see if there's maybe some money showing up that can help you with some loans, with some information, as well as in some cases some training. The groups that we like to take a look at is, how do you connect some of these entrepreneurs with capital, with angel investors, people that have money, that are looking for a lead, looking for some opportunity to invest in these ideas and these companies and see if they can make some money, and that what might even go to the Junior Stock Exchange, which just happened about 10 years ago. It used to be $250,000 to go into the stock market and Toronto Stock Exchange, but now there's the CNX, which is really the junior stock market in Toronto. You might not know about, but for $10,000 you can go public. This is over-the-counter trades, which is a really interesting idea of how you might be able to raise capital because of information and because of the company that you started. That's also one way that you could start to raise some funds and start having, giving some of your shares away, of course, but be able to get some cash to start everything, starting to create some jobs. The other thing you're looking for, and we as a company or as a city is how do we get you some space? They had the Small Business Center for years out in Oxford Street, and that was the most successful job creation program in Canada for about 8 years. And what they did is they had some real low-cost warehouse space. They had a mentor that would help you get started, would have secretarial help, you had some accounting help, you had some banking help, to the point where you could start your company at a low cost. And they ran that for many years, and many of these companies are in the millions of dollars now, and a lot of these are out Industrial Road and out East London, have started their plants, and they grew, and they moved out of there, and they're now creating hundreds of jobs in London. And of course, that's what you want to have happen. And unfortunately, because the roof leaked there a couple of years back, they went and moved that now to more of a consulting concern. But I think to bring back the location, bring back some industrial property, and make that available to entrepreneurs, people that need some low cost and some good training and competent consultants to help you. I think that's something that I'm looking for, and see if we can find the property and someone to maybe donate some of that. Training is another area where, look at what schools, take a look at the schools. Is there any entrepreneur training going on? I don't know that many myself, but you've got to have some training. You've got to have some ways of thinking, and how you worry about making money, how you worry about expenses. Expenses have got to be always less than your income, or you're not in business. So I think the important thing is to get some business training, some entrepreneurial training, and I'm looking for more and more from the universities and colleges, certainly around here, to say, let's do some more and have some measurables where people can learn and be trained, other than thinking they're going to get a graduation, get out and get $60,000 a year, which is very tough anymore. You've got to figure out, if you don't get a job, what are you going to do? How are you going to make a dollar based on what opportunities are out there? For example, there's Waterloo started an MBA program for starting their company just last year in Stratford. Wasn't that interesting? You had to go to school. You paid to go to school. You got a master's degree, and you could also, as part of the program, you could talk to any university or Waterloo professor to help you when you start your company. That started last September, and they had 20, I think, in the program. So that's one way of, wow, wasn't too much money from the city to help that along. But on the other hand, after a year, you've got 20 companies that could now start to evolve, rent some space, and start doing some things, which was the help of this program. And I want to move that to London, because I've got some people in town, with some people that own property, and they're prepared to give 20,000 square feet to Londoners for a year, and have a very, very, maybe a cost reduction, or not a cost reduction, probably more of a charitable donation, but to allow students to be trained in that environment. So I love Western. Right now, I've asked the president, which used to be the president of Waterloo years back, he knows the program. I want him to see if we can start some University of Western Ontario, or Western University now it's called, to start a master's program, or some type of an engineering or a training program in London, that we can attract 20 students to get a master's or get a degree based on them starting their company, and then hook in with all the professors at Western, just like Waterloo's doing. Now, wouldn't that be exciting? And Western would even make some money here, because especially if the landowner would donate the property for a year, I think we've got a way of very low cost, no tax money, and allow jobs to be created very quickly. And then, of course, after the end of the year, they would move out into a space, and we could certainly, as a city, help them get some jobs created. So I think that's helpful. I think there's some connections out there. There's even you go to a government, you go to the provincial government or federal government, they've got different consultants that will say, well, there may be some money for training. What I'd like to see is them doing some grantsmanship work for people that want to have a job, or want to have a good business plan, and want to move ahead, so we can maybe apply for some of these grants and help them get the grants, opposed to, here you go, you can go find a grant, but see if you can figure out how to fill out the 800 pages. So I think those are things that we can do as a city to try to encourage the environment to make this happen. Also, there's other ways that we can, invigorate the Chamber of Commerce to get involved with this, or invigorate both universities and colleges and some of our connections. For example, Rochester years back had one of the best job creation idea I've ever heard. They invited me at no charge to go down to Rochester, and what they did is they had a 5-minute speech from everyone was looking for financing with their invention, with their connections. And what the cities did, Rochester this time said, we will make you a guarantee, and these are the people that we're paying to go to, were angel investors or people that wanted to invest money in a company. And Rochester says, if you could put down a piece of paper the things that would bring you to Rochester, based on the inventions that you saw that were being taught or being talked about for 5 minutes, and then of course they walked over later and had a table display so they could talk to the investors. But to encourage the investors to set up a company in Rochester, they said, give me on a piece of paper to the economic development group and put down what you would need in order to create that job in Rochester. And the deal was that within 30 days, we would get back to you with positive on anything. If we did positive on everything that we suggested, then you would come to Rochester. And what they had done that in Rochester, they got 40 business people in town. There was a person that had banking, training, information. They had real estate. They had a whole bunch of connections around Rochester, and they all talked among each other. The 40 said, here's an opportunity on one piece of paper, what it would take for a company to come to Rochester. And they had everything. They want training, they want some location, they want so many thousand square feet, they wanted connections, they wanted even green cards, which was really interesting in the States. So they wanted some training and a bunch of things to bring their company to Rochester based on the environment and based on this mentoring with businesses and trying to help them. And that was so successful, and they said that if you check off everything that they asked for to come to Rochester, they would do that. The one that they landed that day, which was interesting, I remember, it was a company from London, decided to go to Rochester to be the whole distribution of their products right down the eastern seaboard. And that was one of the, because they had put down green cards and they wanted a whole bunch of things to make sure that they had connections, the training, and the talent to open that company there. And it was Lawson Martin, a London company years back. So this is a successful method that we as a counselor and can invigorate the community and help the community grow this type of thing, so you can job create with not a lot of taxpayers' money. It's just making sure that the connections are made and encouraging them to be connected. Other things to do with how the city can help this is to building permits. If you want to start building something, you want to get a building permit in a very quick, if possible, way. You don't want a great big expensive one. Every time you want to do something, you have to have a zoning change or something, which is very expensive. But if we can make it easier for people that will come to the city and say, yes, I want to do renovation here, or I want to do this, or I want to fix this up, because there's a whole bunch of jobs that are based on everything we do around the house, whether it be painting, or whether it be putting an addition to it, or whether it be fixing whatever. And I think if we have to have a new pool or something like that on the property, make the city be welcoming, be very timely at getting information back, making it reasonably cost for the Londoner to do that. And that's important, and that is something that we can encourage as a council, encourage the planning and all the logistics of how we function with all the paperwork that runs through City Hall. And I think that's very, very important to make that happen, make it happen faster than we are right now. And other things, like, for example, we've talked about ways that you can give extra money to the city, which there's been some interesting dialogue about that. But for example, the idea, this cup of soup idea, where we could do 1,000 cups of soup for out East London, or for every student in public school, for like $100,000 a year. Wow. If they get a tax receipt from the city, and the city would pay no more than 5% administration, to cash the check and what have you. But if that could be now put into the area, the volunteers in the area, guarantee that you got a 50-cent cup of soup or whatever the case may be, we encouraged some of the farmers in the area. It could be a farmer's market could set up as well. You've got good food, you've got nutritional, you could have some training to do with how do you cook a cup of soup, and maybe have some competition between one school and the other school. I mean, you can invigorate volunteers, invigorate maybe new employees, because then there's other jobs and grants are available if you have a new employee on staff. So there's ways of engendering, if not getting a hold of some of this money provincially and federally, because you're creating a new job. And so there's one of the examples that we can then, by giving get a tax receipt, we can set up another group that starts a job and gets that maybe multiplied up. And I think those are things that I'm looking outside the box to make job potential in London. And so from the small business center idea, and from the how we can as a city come up with I'm looking right now for maybe some industrial property to expand the small business center, so that we can not only train people and give them counsel, but also have them some space, some low-cost space for a while, so they can now start to build some machinery or buy some machinery and start doing some service. And we can certainly help some of the advertising that's needed by different companies in town, which will help that. So there's just an idea of what I'm doing and trying to help others, and certainly like all the help we can get. When the idea is to see if we can create some more jobs in London in the next couple of years, so that it's a town where you want to come to and you want to live here. Once you graduate from school, you stay here because there's great opportunities. So thank you for that and for listening for some of these ideas, and let's keep in touch, and we'll talk some more.